we got our bucket of compost. We're gonna bring it to the compost pile where we can empty it. This is my recycled milk carton, which I have filled with water to rinse out the buckets. So this is our compost pile. This side has a ton of straw on the top of it. And what you want to do is grab your pitchfork, and I like to go on the side and find a new spot that hasn't been used lately. And you simply take off that top layer of straw. And you find that opening. Then you're going to grab your bucket, empty it into that spot, and then you're just going to cover it back up. That keeps the compost pile contained in one spot so that the heat really mixes it all up, and it's also very moist in this location. One thing I've learned is never ever look in the bucket. Don't ever check. There's always a little extra that gets stuck at the bottom, so I like to rinse it out with water. And depending on how often you have to empty it, you also want to clean the bucket so that you don't get urea and other buildup on the bottom. To clean out the inside, we'll bring it to our utility sink and we'll use a brush and we'll scrub out the bottom. But after you get all the water through it, it's really not too bad as long as you rinse that out. So this sawdust here really soaks up any liquid that might get to the bottom, and it also eliminates any smell that you might have roaming. This is rich because it's got some of the dirt on the bottom, so there's a lot of microorganisms living in here ready to break down any compost. This is our setup for our compost toilet, which folds down nice and easy into 3 sections so you can do all your business. Here's our sawdust, which we throw on top after using the bathroom. So the 4 things that your compost needs to remain rich and active is it's going to need some oxygen. You don't want to just concentrate it all into a box, not let oxygen in. It's going to really smell and none of it's going to compost. It's really just going to sit there. It also needs to be the right temperature. If it's freezing out, this pile is not big enough to contain enough heat to keep it going through. So I was looking over the video, I realized I messed up. This pile is big enough to produce heat and maintain heat throughout the winter. It's just not going to really melt the snow as fast as one that might be as big in an agricultural scene. You also need a good diet. You need a mixture of carbon and nitrogen, which is why we add the leaves to the pile for more carbon, or we'll add more of our waste for the nitrogen part. You also need to keep it moist. So a lot of the times I'll go to the bathroom outside in the woods, do whatever I have to out there, but the urine and the mixture of this really keeps it moist, because if it dries out it's not going to compost as well, it's not going to decompose as fast. So where it is here, it gets quite a bit of shade so it doesn't dry out throughout the day, and we also get consistent rain, so it's not a big problem. Over 1.2 billion people are lacking clean drinking water. And a lot of the times in the house, the water that's going into your toilet is clean and chlorinated. You can make toilets as pretty as you want or as simple as you want. A 5-gallon bucket is all you need to get started. Some of those non-efficient toilets use 5 gallons of water just for a flush. And if you can imagine that, that's one of those big water containers that you can buy from Walmart, and just throwing that down the toilet, possibly just with urine. So the compost process may seem disturbing at first, but it's really something you just take care of once a week and your life goes on. For me, I like to keep the bucket at about half full every time I take it out. That way there's no fear of it overflowing or anything. The amount of scoops you need to cover your waste is dependent upon your waste. If it smells, you add more, and if it doesn't, you add less. So there isn't a ton of upkeep that needs to be maintained with these compost buckets. Once a month I like to scrub them out. I rinse them out every time that I take them out, and then white vinegar, pouring that on the bottoms, and just letting that sit for a few hours, and it cleans out the bottom pretty well. And this is really only necessary, once a month, depending on how often you clean it out. So here are some simple ideas for composting. Here's a 5-gallon bucket. You can get more in depth and go with something like this, or something real fancy like this one here. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you learned something. A lot of the information I learned was from the Humanure Handbook, by Joseph Jenkins. So if you want, check that out. Thanks for watching.